It is 5:31 p.m. on Monday, July 18th, and I'd like to call this work session to order. Our first agenda item is city updates. So Ms. Solano, please take it away.
Thank you, Madam Chair, City Council, and Mayor Gradisar. I have 2 or 3 updates tonight, but mostly it's confirmation of submissions to requests that City Council has asked in the previous weeks. I'm have a quick COVID update. Our 1 week positivity cumulative index is 302.2, and the average positivity rate for the last week is 9.4%. The wastewater results did come back today from last Thursday's testing, and it does show an increase in the influent as well. And we do have 10 days of stabilized hospitalizations at Parkview, and I don't have any information about St. Mary Corwin. And the rest of that I have is just confirmation that I sent to City Council. You should have received today an email with access to a link for the pictures from the drone. The drone took of the homeless areas, and there's several photos there. And when you open the link, you have to also open the photo and then download it. So it's a process to go through each one of them, but it is not video. They are still photos. I also sent out to you today in preparation for next Monday's City Council meeting the list of the outstanding or on hold ARPA requests to date. And they're separated by requests from city departments and city projects versus the community projects. And so they're listed separately for you. And I think you asked for those in advance of the first reading and definitely before your vote on the current projects that had been presented to City Council in the last few weeks. I also sent that list, the list of current projects to be on first reading next week with the amount and the requester of each project. So that's in your email as well. And the last thing that I sent to make sure you received was a list that Councilor Maestri asked for, and that was the update from PEDCO on the shell buildings. So all of those I think went out in the last either Friday or today. And that concludes city updates, and I'm ready with any questions or to take any direction on subsequent reports you'd like.
Thank you, Ms. Solano, for those updates. What questions are there from council? Councilor Maestri.
The request from Councilor Winter was to have you play the drone at a meeting, and you're sending us pictures, the drone footage at a meeting.
The request from Councilor Winter, as I took it, was to forward the drone information, and I don't have videos. I can check with.
Why don't you have videos?
I only was provided with photos, still photos.
Okay, because there is a video. I've seen the video. I think that's what the community is looking for, to see for themselves what's going on down there. So obviously we can put that on a thumb drive, can't we, to take it to the mayor's office?
And is your request, Councilor Maestri, to send to all of you or to play at a work session?
To play at a work session. That was her request.
So we'll just need to bring it here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none. President Graham wanted to address council before our next agenda item.
Yeah, several of you I've talked to already, but I just wanted to let everybody know that the fire is also wanting to join the public safety tax at a 0.05. So it would be 0.25 for the safety tax. We're coordinating a couple town halls the first week of August 2nd and August 3rd. There'll be 2 different locations, and we're also putting out a survey on Zen City where people can go and give feedback on whether they would like to see fire added to the public safety tax. So I just wanted to let everybody know that was going on, because it will have to be, Mayor, will there have to be a consensus from the council before, or?
Yeah, I mean, council will have to agree to, number one, increase the tax, and then I think put it on the ballot. And as we've discussed before, there's little likelihood that an issue like that could pass if the council's divided or not supporting it. I mean, it can't be the kind of deal where you have council members out campaigning against it and you expect it to pass. So we met with the fire and the police last week. Those meetings are ongoing. And, you know, at some point we'll bring a ballot issue to you that we recommend, and it'll be up to the council at that time to decide whether it'll include fire, whether it'll just include police, whether it'll remain the same amount, or whether it'll be increased. So that'll be a decision that the council will have to make. And my recollection is that our deadline for submitting the ballot proposal for the November election is near the end of August. So that's when we have to have that finalized, passed. It's an ordinance, so it'll take 2 readings. So by the 1st of August, we probably have to have some ballot language that we can submit to you at the first regular meeting in August.
And then some things that the fire would be using, the additional tax would be for new apparatus, which are about 600,000, and a new ladder truck, which is about 1.2 million. So it wouldn't be personnel. It would be apparatus and improvement to equipment, PPE.
8822.
Those types of things.
Thank you, President Graham, for that. Councilor Flores.
Yeah, just a little history, and that is that the taxpayers basically tax themselves for an additional 24 police officers, and that really arose out of the crime that was occurring. And you know, I'm willing to, you know, look at this again, but I don't see the two kind of connected whatsoever at this point, because in one area it was really about personnel and manpower, and being able to manage the crime that was going on at the time. And obviously that hasn't subsided. And I think that that's so important to note. And when you start telling the citizens you want more taxes on top of that, I worry a lot. And we could land up with losing the money on both sides if the people, especially now with all the other things that are occurring in our economy. But I just wanted to bring that up because I think they're two different things here, and I'm willing to kind of study the issue. We need an expert to tell us the likelihood of adding another tax right now, and you know, for equipment, especially at this stage, you know, whether that really makes sense. So I'll be interested in being part of that discussion.
Wanted to make everybody aware that that's what was going on. And then the 2 town halls will take place on Thursday the 2nd and then Thursday the 4th. And we'll get you that information when it's, and fire and police will be presenting. And then community can ask questions. It'll just be 2 town halls.
I want to circle to the mayor and then we'll go Councilor Maestri.
Our plan, as you know, with respect to these new fire stations is to issue certificates of purchase to borrow the money for that. And depending upon, and obviously there'll be some equipment requirements for those new fire stations that will have to be included. My idea would be that we'd include those items of equipment into that COP. Now, if that meets the need, then perhaps we don't need to change the tax, but as I say, we're still working through those at this point. So.
Councilor Maestri.
How's that?
Here at one church so far, it's Praise Assembly.
Okay.
And then we're working to secure a second location big enough to host. Do you know what day Praise Assembly is? That Haley? Tuesday the 2nd is Praise Assembly.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Seeing none, we will then move to our next agenda item, which is a presentation from Catholic Charities of Southern Colorado. So can I please have Anu and Mr. Riggs to the podium, please?
All right. Good evening. Thank you. I want to thank the mayor and the city council for hearing us this evening. We want to come just give you an update about Catholic Charities. We've been in the community for 78 years, and we would want to take this opportunity to tell you about some of the things that we're doing here. My name is John Riggs. I'm the chairman of the board for this year of Catholic Charities. I'm also the CFO at Parkview Medical Center. And with me tonight, I have Anu Kelly, who is the Director of Programs for Catholic Charities. We also have John Brainerd, who is our Interim Executive Director. And today is his first day with us. So we're glad to have him. And we thought we'd just throw him right into the fire and bring him here. And also we have Crystal Estrada, who's our Advancement Director for Catholic Charities. Okay. You have a picture there of our main building. So a little bit about our history. We started off April 6th of 1944 as Catholic Social Services. And then in January 20th of 2020, we had a name change, and it was really to more identify with Catholic Charities of USA, and we became Catholic Charities of the Diocese of Pueblo. And then in December of 21, we had another name change, and that's what we're called currently, Catholic Charities of Southern Colorado. And just some interesting things about, you'll see our new logo there on the left side of the picture. And what it represents is a wildflower. And it was picked because of its strength. It was also named after Our Lady of Guadalupe, a widely recognized religious icon commonly associated with social justice and those who are marginalized. We have 6 members on the board. Myself, Shelley Moschini, who's our vice chair, Mona Klein, Manuel Calderon, Christy Dorrit, and Judge Stephen Philman. We've had many more in the past, and we're currently looking for members to serve, but as with our name change, we're also trying to go to the 29 other counties, or really 28 other counties that are served outside of Pueblo. And so we are looking to recruit board members from all Southern Colorado. And so we hope to expand, possibly double the size of our board from where we're at right now. One of the interesting things is we're required to have 50% Catholic members. And the reason why I say it's interesting is because we don't limit our services to Catholics. We serve the entire community. And right now we have an even split on the board where there's 50% Catholic and 50% non-Catholic. So we do serve the entire community. And I just thought that would be interesting and interesting update. And now I'm going to pass it on to Anu, who's going to tell you more about the programs.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all here. So Catholic Charities, we are well known for our programming and our services. We recently, I guess you could say, subdivided our programming into 3 different subcategories of prevention and stabilization, family strengthening, and opportunity building. We have quite a few, so I'm going to try to get through as many as I can in the time I have allotted. So starting with our prevention and stabilization programs, one of our most widely known programs is the Home Stability Program, which focuses on homelessness prevention. And under the umbrella of the Home Stability Program, we also have our HUD Housing Counseling Program and our Emergency Assistance Program, which is probably one of our most largely used programs or services We assist community members with rent, mortgage, and utility assistance, including water. Another program under the home stability that used to be under the home stability program is our representative payee program. So we serve individuals who are on a fixed income, so SSI, SSDI, and we help them manage their funds so that we can prevent them from becoming homeless. All right. Moving on to our family strengthening programs. So one of our, I'm not pressing that. So Parents as Teachers, it is a home visiting program. It's one of our early childhood programs. We serve children between the ages of 0 and 2, so prenatal to 2 years old. And that curriculum, it's a nationally recognized curriculum that assists caregivers in being their child's very first educator. And so sets that child up for then more success in school, which we then try to have that child or that family transition into our home instruction for parents of preschool youngsters, or HIPPY program, which serves children between the ages of 3 to 5. And that is a kindergarten prep curriculum, and that as well is a nationally recognized evidence-based program. All right, and then our opportunity building program. So Rehire is our transitional jobs program. Through this program, we serve individuals that are 50 years or older, veterans or non-custodial parents. Those are our target populations that are outlined in our contract from the state. However, we do serve individuals outside of those 3 target populations. In this past year, we have placed 88 individuals in unsubsidized employment. If you're not familiar with subsidized employment, Catholic Charities is the employer of record, and we pay their wages while we have them at a host site. In fact, during the pandemic, we placed quite a few of our transitional jobs program participants at different nonprofits around the community, such as the Soup Kitchen and Cooperative Care. And if you ever get a chance to talk to any of the folks that run those organizations, they would say that we were instrumental in helping them survive the pandemic. And then our immigration services. So through immigration services, we provide everything family immigration, green card reapplication or application and reapplication. If you need a spousal visa, we do it all. And that's our programs.
Thank you, Ani. So when you come to the charities, one of the first things you'll get if you're coming for a service is you'll get a questionnaire. And what the questionnaire is trying to help us better identify the needs that we can serve you. And regardless of religious belief, age, race, color, national origin, sex, sexual orientation, gender identification, or disability, we serve all. If any of these questions are asked, it's mainly for demographics because we do have federal and state grants, which I'll go over a little bit later. And so those are the main reasons for the questions. Now, when we get this information, one of the things on the next slide is who we serve. And you can see many different ethnicities here. But when you group them, what you'll see is about 48% identify as Hispanic or Latino. And then the other large group is identify as white, and that's 30%. And then as far as needs is on the next slide. And the biggest need by far is employment. And then this is followed by adult education as well as childcare. And so when you take all those, they all go together. And so that's over 70% of the needs of our people who are coming for service. and then where we serve. So these are the same counties as what is served by the diocese. And so there's 29 counties up here. And by the little bubbles, you can see by far we serve most needs out of Pueblo, and then Huerfano, as well as Los Animos. And so those are our three big counties, but that's why we're trying to expand not only our board, but so that we can also serve better the other 29, or the total of 29 counties here. But you can see the different services that are done here. And the one that is done in every county is immigration services, which Anu talked about briefly. Our community is basically the people we serve, their families, moms, dads, kids, and we serve them in a lot of different ways, not only with the education we provide, but we try to get togetherness in the fact that you can see a meal is prepared there, and just try to get some of the basic needs through communication and the meals that are provided. Our funding, which I touched on briefly, the majority comes from federal and state contracts. You can see it's split pretty evenly there at 1.7 million. But that makes up 60% of the total receipts that we have is from federal and state contracts. So as y'all well know, there's a lot of compliance that goes along with those, with receiving those funds. Also, with our staffing, we have a payroll of 3.2 million, which out of the 5.7, that's 55% of our total funding goes towards payroll. And we have 77 total employees there that work for Catholic Charities with an average rate of pay of $20. Here's a breakdown of the staffing and the salaries. And then next is just our staff. We start off basically with all of our directors, and you can see that Anu has the majority of the people that report to her. So the way that Catholic Charities basically is able to continue to provide services to the community is not only by the contracts that we have, but also by the fundraising that we do. So we are trying to stay up with the times, and we have our own scan QR code here. And so we presented this here in the presentation. And really, it's more to let you know that we do 2 appeals a year, usually at Christmas time and the late spring. We also recently did a mail out flyer similar to this. And so if you live in the 81005 zip code, you probably got one this weekend. And so we have different methods of going out. We do 2 of those a year. And those are targeted basically at new donors. And so we try to allow as many people as we can to get involved because we serve the entire community. Are there questions that I can answer for you, or Anu can answer?
Thank you, Mr. Riggs and Anu. What questions are there from council? Councilor Martinez-Ortega.
It's not a question, it's more of a comment. I was at Books in the Park at Ray Aguilera Bessemer Park, and Hippie was there signing folks up and helping folks, access different services, along with the library was there. There was Parks and Rec, Pueblo Rocks was there, and then just like other, there was just a lot of community members, and there was folks. Your folks were really engaging with people, and that was great. Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate that feedback.
Councilor Flores.
I know that you help people with utilities and with their rent payments and other things that they're struggling with. Do you also help individuals that may be nearing foreclosure on a house that they've, been, maybe they're, not caught up with their payments and they're on the verge of being foreclosed? That seems to be a problem here in this community.
Right. So that is our HUD housing counseling program. And that's exactly what it is. It's to help people to prevent foreclosure. So we have 2 certified housing HUD certified housing counselors. And what they do is initially we try to mitigate foreclosure by putting together a budget with them to see where they can maybe cut some costs so that they can pay more towards their mortgage. And if that is not a possibility, then we go to, is there a way that we could figure out how to refinance? Can we talk to your lender and try to work something out with them? So yes, we do.
The reason I brought that up is that if you're not aware of this, the state of Colorado has set aside some money specifically for this. And I was told that they have designated $8 million for Southern Colorado to not only, pay for, for counselors, but also to help people maybe catch up on their payments or be the impetus for refinancing. So if you haven't checked with DOLA, Department of Labor, you should get in that queue because, there's money to be had to help people in Pueblo because I'm very concerned about the amount of people that find themselves in foreclosure.
Thank you for that. And we do refer individuals to that program. And what we have heard is that it is a very long process and that qualifying for assistance is rather difficult.
Yeah, NeighborWorks has counselors too, just like you, and they've been able to access the money directly and speed up the process because there is the opportunity to deal directly with the state, and you can imagine how hard that road is going to be, along with giving you the autonomy to handle it here locally. And I'd urge you to do that.
Absolutely, thank you.
Right. You probably get this question asked a lot, and I think it's important that you clarify it, and that is that you're no different than any other nonprofit 501c3, that you're not just helping Catholics or you're just not helping a group, and that you're no different basically because your name and your title says Catholic. I think, you need to clarify, to the community that you help everyone, which gives you the same status as United Way or any other nonprofit in the community. And I think that's important. I'm aware of that, but I think for you to say it is important so that they're not thinking that government is tying, having, relationship with faith-based organizations, but.
Okay, thank you.
We'll do Councilor Atencio and then Councilor Maestri.
Your children's programs from 0 to 4, how many people do you have enrolled and how does that work? I imagine that's probably a pretty important program to get not only children, but parents to learn how to teach.
Absolutely. So our referrals come heavily from outreach events. You've seen our staff out there, so we go out and we hustle and get referrals. We also partner heavily with the Department of Human Services, and so they send us referrals. But sorry, could you repeat the question?
Well, how many do you have enrolled? How does it work, and how do you get enrolled?
So mainly referrals. Our parent educators, which PAT home visitors, that's what they're referred to as parent educators. They also go to these events and get referrals. But parents come to them, we enroll them. We use that document that is in our presentation. That's a part of our screening process, or our intake process, I should say. And then let me get to, it's a long process, not to get them enrolled, but the program is literally, if we can get someone as they are pregnant and see them on through to that child is 2 years old, it's a 2-year process or more. And so we currently, in this current fiscal year, we served, it was 100, last I checked, which was last week, we were at 121 families served through the Parents as Teachers program. Through the HIPPY program, we had served, it was somewhere around 98 families. And that program is actually during the school year. So they just closed out their program year. But it was around 98 families that we had served through the HIPPY program. And then we have Safe Care, which served about 48 families. And Safe Care is another home visitation program where they're called parent support providers go into the home and they help the families mitigate risks to their children. Things like, electrical hazards, choking hazards, or down to things as simple as when should I take my child to the emergency room? Oftentimes families will use the emergency as, the baby may have like a sniffle or a cough and take them to the emergency room, which is, as we all know, emergency rooms backlogged. Oftentimes you'll be sitting there for hours on end. So we go through a lot of emergency situations, when to take your child, when not to take your child. Did I answer the question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you did. Thank you.
Councilor Maestri.
You said that 55% goes to salary of your total funds?
I'm sorry,
Did you say 55% goes
correct.
to, and how much goes to total overhead in addition to salary?
It's about 15% goes to overhead.
An additional 15%.
It's part of the total of our total spend is basically what we have in funding. So of the, I think it was 5.5 million, 15% of that is for overhead.
Okay. And then how much of like local tithing to the church goes into your program? What's that percentage? Do you get tithe? I mean, when people tithe at the church, that goes into the Catholic local diocese. Does that part of that come back to the?
That is not part of the local tithes. Stays with the local congregation or to the diocese. Now we are funded a portion by the diocese.
What's that percentage?
It's a very small percentage. I would say it's less than 1%.
As a dollar figure, that amount on average has been between $80,000 and $100,000 annually.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Given that childcare is such a huge need for the families that you serve, and you're filling the employment gap of, the employment need of your clients, I'm wondering if you're thinking about how to solve the childcare crisis for the clients that you serve. If you're going to open up a childcare, what does that look like for you all?
That is not in our current plans. We recognize it's a problem we have at Parkview. So that's something I know it's prevalent among the community, but we haven't at the Catholic Charities. We haven't. That isn't one of our immediate goals.
Well, I was hoping you guys would say yes, because childcare, all I hear is childcare. There's no childcare. There's no childcare. So if you think about it, let us know.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments for Kathy, Mayor?
Yeah, I'd just like to express my personal appreciation in behalf of the City of Pueblo to Catholic Charities. You guys partnered with us in United Way during the pandemic, and I think helped distribute more than $1 million in rent relief and utility payments to the citizens who were in need. So we really appreciate that you had that apparatus in place that you could do that, and the city didn't have to do that. So thank you very much for that.
But thank you very much. United Way has been a great partner.
And a huge congratulations to John Bernard, who's the now interim executive director. Welcome. So seeing no other questions or comments, we're going to move right along on our agenda. The next presentation then is the Pueblo Food Project update. So can I have Ms. Moore to the podium, please? And then can you please say your name for the record?
Yes, Megan Moore.
Yeah, Megan, I have you on the agenda. I just need it.
Gianna King.
Thanks, Gianna. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, sorry, I was like waiting for a go or something. All right. Good evening, Council. Thank you for having us. I'm Megan. You guys know me already. This is Gianna King. She's our intern for the Pueblo Fuji Kits. She'll be talking a little bit later after I'm done. So I'm going to have to talk really fast because I have a lot of information to give to you guys. In front of you is our annual report. I'm not following that in this presentation. That's for your reference. So you can look through that when you have time. A lot of good information in there. Do I have my slides? Okay, so first of all, who is the Pueblo Food Project? The Pueblo Food Project is a community-led coalition that helps create a more vibrant, nutritious, and equitable food system for every eater in Pueblo County. We have over 150 members, 5 working groups, 1 task force, and 1 youth council. We have many stakeholders across the community, including this small list on the presentation, but many others across the community that help us complete our mission. Those 5 working groups are access, advocacy, food and farm literacy, education, local food economy, and food and farm literacy and education. And I'll talk about each of those as I go through the presentation a little bit more. So first off, our programs, and I'm going to list these off and then give you a little bit more information as we go. So we have a PFP community pantry. We have Edible Landscapes, a community garden sustainability project, 7th grade hydroponic grow curriculum, the Pueblo Fuji Kits, which is our youth council, the Sun Soil Water Summit, an entrepreneur development program, Hunger Relief Task Force, meal prep, community cooking classes, Same Cafe, and ongoing coalition engagement, including Jedi work. Next slide just gives you a little bit of a snapshot of what our budget looks like. So first year we had 85,000, second year 172,000, last year 455,000, all from various foundations. We are 100% grant funded. So some of those places include Colorado Health Foundation, ARPA, Colorado Blueprint to End Hunger, the Denver Foundation, OPMR, CARES Act, Packard Foundation, and a few others. So far in 2022, we have been awarded a $250,000 grant from the Colorado Department of Law, $20,000, from the Garon Nikshich Foundation, and a Colorado Blueprint to End Hunger grant for $100,000 for a total of $370,000 for 2022. And then moving on to our next slide. So those 5 impact areas are kind of what I'm going to talk about. So first one is healthy food access. In 2021, we supported the use of SNAP and WIC dollars at the farmers market, which ended up in $15,000 worth of transactions. So that's people who were able to use their EBT card at the farmers market. So that was implemented last year and is continuing this year. And we'll have an update on what that number is when the season ends. We last year delivered over 8,000 food packages around the community. Over 23,000 items were given through our community pantry in 2021. This year, we've spent the full 100,000 from the Colorado Blueprint to End Hunger to put in the pantry, which includes 7,000-ish items. That's like based on some cases, so not single items, but some are in cases and some are in single items. And then we also, out of that budget, made 2,000 homeless meal kits, which have all been distributed to different hunger relief organizations in the community. And just a real quick note, along with healthy food access, Pueblo Food Project has been working on bringing a Same Cafe to Pueblo. Same Cafe stands for So All May Eat. It is a by donation restaurant, and it's a really amazing concept. We have gotten the green light from Same Cafe National to move forward with the planning process in that. So next is raising some money and then finding a place to put it. Yep, that's it on that slide. Sorry. Next slide. So our impact last year, we spent $300,056 and $300,000. Sorry. $356,000 in the local food economy and just food procurement. These are all of the local suppliers that we used. Same list this year. I haven't purchased from quite as many in 2022, and we'll have that list at the end of the year. Yeah. So besides that, we also have our entrepreneur program. It started in February and ended in May. It's a 20-week semester that food businesses are allowed to join. It's basically an accelerator program for businesses focusing on food things like sales tax on food, how to source food, supply chain, things like that are integrated into that program. We had 12 start the program and 9 finish, which is pretty good for an entrepreneur program. I'm not sure if you know that, but the finishing rate is like less than 50%. So that's well over 50%. So we're really excited about that. And we are also supporting those entrepreneurs moving forward. They're allowed to use our booth that we've paid for at the farmers market to sell their goods. So we've had 4 businesses come and do that so far, and we'll have more as they come through the season. Moving on, farm and food literacy and education. First of all, we have a 7th grade food and farming curriculum. This started at Roncalli and is now at 2 schools. It is a national and state recognized curriculum, and we would love as a long process to get it in all of the schools, but it's a really great program. The students are able to grow food and eat it, put it in their homes, or donate it. So it's a really exciting thing for students to do. I think that it's really beneficial for students to learn how to grow food. We also have helped the Steelworks Museum with a grant to insert 10 gardens in the Eilers Grove and Bessemer neighborhoods, and those are on their 2nd year. And there's a 10-week growing curriculum that they follow if they so choose, but the Steelworks Center works on that a little bit more closely. We have developed community cooking classes. This program started out of a meeting that the Farm and Food Literacy Education group had with a set of parents that came. They decided that something that would be so super beneficial to families, them and families that they knew, would be to learn how to cook with their children and cook as a family and learn how to eat healthier. So from our Colorado Department of Law grant, we will be having 10 classes for the next 3 years on cooking. The last 2 classes were farm fresh frittata and picnic salads. We had over 20 families total that joined us through those 2 classes. And it was really incredible to see the kids be so excited about learning new things and families really engage with each other. Not only do they get to eat with us that night, whatever we're cooking, they're able to take the meal home and eat another time. And oftentimes we'll be able to take the ingredients home to make it again. So that's 3 or more times when hunger is relieved in a family and a household. So we're really excited about this program and we're excited to see where it goes. The Community Garden Sustainability Project supports 4 existing and 2 new community gardens. It's been going really well this year. The gardens are starting to produce really well and people are really engaged and excited. We have like 30 volunteers that help maintain the gardens. Along with that, we have edible landscapes. There's 3, one at the county courthouse, one at Mineral Palace Park, and the other one at Central Plaza. These are maintained by a contract we have with the Master Gardeners. And they're beautiful. Anybody in the whole community can come and pick from those and eat from those. So a place to relieve hunger for anybody who might need it. And lastly, we just have a grow your own food guide that can be passed around to anyone in the community to help learn a little bit more about how to grow your own food. We also have a goal of improving and educating food advocacy in the community. So for one piece of that, we have the Sun Soil Water Summit. Last year was a conference that was held in November at PCC. We had over 200 people attend from the community and surrounding communities, and learned a lot about the food system, Pueblo Food Project, and many other things. We also had a pitch competition at that event, and we had really incredible businesses come through who had really great ideas. We also had a regional summit for Colorado food systems and a policy boot camp. These focused on solutions in our communities that may not be direct policy, but what kind of things can we develop between organizations, between businesses, between people that help create a more sustainable and better supported food system. And lastly, something that's very important to Pueblo Food Project is language equity. All of our meetings are available in Spanish so that any community member can come and join us and feel comfortable. We hope at some point to have ASL, but obviously Spanish is the most prominent language that's spoken in our community, and it especially brings in a community that we want to support, which is farm laborers. So we hope that over time, this policy will really make a difference for our community. All right. And then last for me, and then I'll hand it off to Gianna, is the future of the Pueblo Food Project. So right now we're working with Civic Canopy, which is an organization focused on helping organizations get to the next level. They're doing work with us to figure out what the Pueblo Food Project will become. We are looking to our future, knowing that we're growing out of some things and there's some things we want to keep. And we're really excited to work with everyone in our coalition to understand where we want to go. We're evaluating all of the programs that we want to keep, things that we may want to send to another place or might be accepted in another place. But we're also investigating the idea of distributed leadership, which would be the idea that maybe instead of one person who is in charge of all of the decision making, it becomes 3 CEOs who make decisions together and bring that forward to the coalition who also makes the decision, and coming back and forth so that it's never a one decision type thing. We're heavily focused on the community in that aspect so that everyone can have a piece of community development. Lastly, our Colorado Health Foundation grant that we're serving on right now is ending September 30th. We have been invited to apply for the next round of funding, which would be $400,000 over 2 years. That application is due August 1st. We are in the middle of it and are very excited to turn that in. And then I'm going to go ahead and give it to Gianna.
Hello. Oh, yeah. Okay. Hello. So I'm Gianna. I am one of the founding members of the Fuji Kids, which is a youth-led coalition consisting of high school to college-age students, not only excited to learn about the local food system here that we have in Pueblo, but also implement difference throughout the Pueblo community with the help of the Pueblo Food Project. Our focus is not only to promote healthy eating, but also making nutritional foods easy access throughout the community. In doing so through hosting events as well as community outreach. So far, some of these events that we have hosted include meal kit distributions, which we record a video of a recipe and then distribute to community members who signed up the ingredients of this recipe, and then they could follow along either with the cooking video, or we also give out incentives that have the recipe in them. So far, we've done Greek salad wraps, overnight oats, a whole roasted chicken and vegetable lo mein, roasted mushroom tacos, and a couple more. We've served almost 500 families with these meal kits. And we also do DIY cooking classes, which are how to make your own salad dressing. We've also done pizza, and then healthy cookies, as well as microwavable meals. So making meals in the microwave, which is also a different demographic that we've reached out to, focusing on more towards single family homes. So like 1 to 2, 3 people living in the home versus what we normally serve through the meal kits with up to 8 people living in the home. We've also done Fruits of Love, which is an annual event that we host where we distribute 500 meal fruit baskets to different elementary schools within the Pueblo County community.
And that's all for us. If you guys have any questions. Thank you, Ms. Moore and Ms. King, for that presentation. What questions are there from council? Councilor Graham.
Thank you for that presentation. Where exactly is all your food housed at? Your pantry?
Yeah, so we have, we use, they used to be called Southern Colorado Cold and Dry Storage. They're now Fuel Kitchens. They're owned by Fuel and Iron. There's a warehouse. It's right off of Erie on the east side. They have a freezer storage and dry storage, and that's where we keep all of our food.
Is that where you do your cooking classes and all of that?
No, so they don't have a kitchen. We have done all of our cooking classes at Rocky Mountain Stair.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Other questions or comments from council? Councilor Martinez Ortega.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you too for the presentation. Social determinants of health tell us that access to fresh food can lead to disease and injury. And what you're doing is phenomenal to break down the barriers of transportation, fresh food, supporting local. But I'm kind of curious, is the Pueblo Food Project planning on a sustainable plan of action for access to fresh food for Pueblo, particularly the Y zone?
Loaded question. All of our work is focused on making sure that people get the things that they need to live a healthy life. We don't have a long-term plan. We would love to have a long-term plan, but we're 3 years old and we're getting there.
I wonder if it, I remember working as a community organizer with the Pueblo Department of Health and Environment on access to fresh food. It was like a committee or something like that. Do we know if that exists anymore?
Yes. I'm currently serving on a committee for them. It's like the community plan, and one of their big points is childhood obesity.
Well, let us know if there's anything that we can do to help those efforts as well, please.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Ms. Lano.
I'd like to add to Megan's comment about sustainability. It's incredibly fortunate that the city was invited to participate and submit another round of the Colorado Health Foundation grant, and they have doubled in resources. So instead of funding 2 years at $200,000, they've invited us to submit a budget at 2 years, $200,000 each year. And part of the work that will be accomplished during this next grant cycle will be to investigate the sustainable opportunity for a 501c3 status for the city to find its own sustainable future for the Pueblo Food Project outside of the city being the fiscal agent. And as Megan says, it's just 3 years old, and 2 of those were in the middle of the pandemic. And so great stakeholder work and incredible work. The work from the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment and the Pueblo Department of Public Health and Environment, they took the initiatives with social determinants of health to the point of recommending a food systems council. And it stopped there for 2 years until the Pueblo Food Project was born and took it the rest of the way to develop a community council. So when Megan spoke of SNAP availability for fresh food access at the farmers market, that did not exist to all of Puebloans on SNAP until the Pueblo Food Project got it across the goal line. So, and recognizing then, initially when in the food baskets, there were beets and there were onions, and individuals were like, I don't know how to cook a beet. Do all of us know how to cook beets? So the cooking classes for access to healthy eating that are focused on children and parents have been a success, and one baby step at a time in the process of hunger relief in the community.
That's phenomenal. Thank you.
Other questions? Councilor Graham?
So if all the food is stored at these facilities, how do the citizens get to it? How is it provided through pantry? Do you guys have times a day they can come by, or how does that work?
We have our pantry functions more like a food bank than it does a direct service pantry. So we buy all the food, it goes into the warehouse. We have a little section behind a closed password of Supporting Pueblo, the Supporting Pueblo website. Hunger relief organizations like Pueblo Cooperative Care, the Soup Kitchen, CDPHE, if they want, are able to put in a free order. It's just like online shopping. There's maximums for a week. So they can put in an order once a week, get their maximums of what we have available. And then the little order comes to me. I email them when they want to pick it up. The hours of the warehouse are 8 to 11:30 a.m. and they can go pick up from the warehouse.
Mm-hmm. Is not direct assistance like Karen Share. We are providing the food to those that provide the direct assistance to about 11 different organizations.
And
Los Pobres.
It's like over 20 now.
It's over 20.
But the purpose of that was it wasn't going to be beneficial for us to reinvent the wheel and like duplicate services, but it was beneficial for us to get locally sourced food. So everything in the pantry is locally sourced, and it's things that are a little bit harder to get from places maybe like Karen Share. So we buy Martino Cattle Company beef, we buy Gagliano sausage, we buy Double J's chorizo. Meat is a little much harder to get for pantries than other things. We get green chili, we get local tortillas, local jam, things like that. We'll get wholesale, but that's it. And the purpose of it is also because we're buying local, we don't focus on trying to get donations or getting a discount. We want to pay full price into the economy. Yes. And the grants that we've gotten from the Colorado Health Foundation specifically say focus on local buying.
Other questions at all? Now that the council has been around for 3 years and you can start to track data over time, given that a lot of the priority areas are around healthy food, do you see a decrease in community BMI? Are you tracking that? What is actually like the health outcomes look like?
So we haven't gotten to that point quite yet. Since we've been such a small team, it's been very hard to organize big investigations of data like that. After this year and in partnership with CDPHE, because they have such a focus on childhood obesity, we will start tracking that. But as of right now, we can only focus on the families that we've been able to really work with.
It'd be interesting to see long-term that data. Cool. Any other questions? Okay. Oh, Councilor Graham.
Ms. Solano, can you set us up a tour of your pantry so we can have a look at it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
I believe that Tara Marshall from DOLA, who you met a couple of weeks ago, also wanted to see the tour. She's called with an offer of DOLA funding to further support and extend the pantry, which is due to wind down because of lack of funding, and DOLA to the rescue. So I think she's coming in the next week to 10 days. And so we can schedule that tour.
Seeing no other questions or comments, thank you, Ms. King and Ms. Moore, for that presentation. We're moving right along to Andra. 2 weeks in a row, Andra, who's going to be talking about ARPA wastewater projects, including Northern Avenue and the new Pueblo County Jail. So Andra, whenever you're ready.
So as promised last week, we're just going to go over a few more details of these projects so you can see kind of where they are and what the different developments are that flow into these different projects. And I do have a presentation. There we go. Thank you, Daryl. So these are the two projects that we're going to talk about tonight, the West Side Bottleneck from 21st to 11th, and then the Northern from Bandera to Surfwood is a line extension. So you should have received 2 maps. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys, sometimes on these presentations, the maps can be a little squished. So down at the bottom, you'll see that little blue line. Most of these projects that are on this map will eventually flow into that line. So that's why it's important for that line to be upsized so that everything can flow into it freely and without other problems. The projects that are slated to happen soon is Clayton Homes, Pikes Peak Park, which is the Neighbor Works, and then Pueblo Springs Apartments and Cottages at Park West. And then if you look at the top, the Wild Horse annexation, that will eventually flow into it. That is the southern line will go, you guys have all heard about the Southern Clinic line. I've talked to you about it. It's the one with the pipe that goes through the arrarios that's going to be armored. That will eventually come to the line right about where you see Temple Street. So it will flow into there as well. So that is why this was a good project for upsizing, because it will help many different developments within Pueblo. And then next slide. So this is just a smaller version. And then, so this line that's going to be hopefully upsized is going to be 3,900 linear feet of pipe. Currently, the pipe is flowing at approximately 1.5 cubic feet per second, and the allowable for design is 1.7. And then the Pikes Peak Park is going to add 0.42, and then the apartments 0.28. The main one that's going to add quite a bit is the county jail, which is going to add 0.3. So the flow going through there will definitely exceed what is allowable in that pipe. And then why is it bottlenecked? So at the beginning of the pipe where it joins, it starts off at 21, then it goes down to 12 inches in diameter, then it goes to 15. And then when it ends, it will go to an 18-inch line. So we're hoping that we can upsize it to 21 inches in diameter throughout the whole section so that it will hold all of the different flows from all the different developments. And then this one is a line extension that's going to be 2,500 linear feet. That's going to be 15 inches of in diameter, which fits with the pipe that's already there. And this will help Jackson Ranch and Pueblo del Sol development. And Jackson Ranch is going to be approximately 1,900 acres. And then Pueblo del Sol is 24 acres right now. And so this will offset some of the sanitary sewer costs in that area. And do you have any questions for me? Kind of went through that a little fast. I kind of give you the background information last week.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that actually really does help that we just got it's more recent in our minds.
Could I add something?
Yeah.
I want to make sure everybody understands what we're doing here. Under our code of ordinances, the developers in these areas of town would ordinarily be required to upsize these off-premises developments. But our judgment has been that that sort of slowed us down in the past. And so we have this ARPA money available to us. And so we're making it more economical for these developments to take place by using some of that ARPA money to upsize those things and not putting that burden on the developers. So that, for instance, Pueblo County in their jail would have to come up with an extra $2 million if we didn't make this ARPA money available, because they'd be responsible for upsizing that pipe. So I think it's important for you to realize that what we're doing here in terms of trying to assist with the growth of the community in these areas.
Thanks, Mayor. What questions are there from council? Councilor Graham.
Mayor, this one that's going to be on the south side, we had talked earlier before the meeting that these were going to be done because of affordable housing. Is there going to be affordable housing behind El Camino now, or?
The one on the south side is not being done for affordable housing.
So that's not true then, that they're all done for affordable housing?
The only time we're doing on premises, for instance, none of these are on the premises of the developers. These are all off premises. What we were talking about before was NeighborWorks and their project where they need some on premises inside their subdivision. They need some assistance with the sewer lines and the infrastructure there. I've taken the position that we'll help them with that, since that will be an affordable housing project and it's on their premises. For no other developers are we making on-site improvements in their development.
So this would just be in existence to, that's why we're doing it, or this one on the south side?
The south side is necessary in order to service the Jackson Ranch, 1,800 acres that are being annexed to the city, and also for the church on the south side, whose name escapes me, but you can see
Fellowship of the Rockies.
Fellowship of the Rockies has property there just east of Imperial Cemetery on the map. I don't know if you can pull that map up, Daryl. Between El Camino and that's at Pueblo del Sol. There's a residential small, I say small, 80 or 90 lots there that are already subdivided. But for them to be able to build on those lots, if we didn't do this, they would have to expand that sewer line from Bandera Boulevard to Cirquwood, as would the church. Before they could put the church in, they would have to expand that line. We took a look at this, and given the fact that that's an infill development, and given the fact that Jackson Ranch has been purchased now, and that they're going to require sewer service for part of those lots, that this would be a good investment for us and would encourage some of this development to take place if we didn't require the developers to make these off-premises improvements. And again, with respect to Fellowship of the Rockies and that Pueblo del Sol, any infrastructure contained within that subdivision, they have to do. But this is off-premises improvements to the sewer system that ordinarily they would have to make before they could do the on-premises improvements. So, and that's what's hindered part of this development from taking place, is the cost of those off-site improvements. And, you know, it sort of benefits the city. We'll get, we'll get additional customers. We'll get additional customers from these meters there. And so we'll make some additional money when we do that. So,
Councilor Flores.
I kind of missed, if you go to the second page on the south side, what that pink line is. What differentiates that line, or that, what does that mean?
That's actually the extension.
Okay, just that portion right there.
That's that portion.
And is that going to satisfy the Jackson Ranch issue?
Partly, Jackson Ranch will still have to put in some infrastructure to meet that line, but it
so
will help
kind of
them.
meeting them halfway.
Yeah.
I wanted to make a comment too. When we talk about this council working on affordable housing, if in fact we don't do stuff like this, a developer would have to include that in the sales price of the home eventually. So what we're doing is we're really mitigating that being included in the house of homes in these areas. And I think it's a good investment for us that we do, you know, that we do projects like this, especially nowadays. So whatever my 2 cents are worth, that's it.
Councilor Maestri and then Councilor Atencio.
So to clarify, on the west side, it's from the 21st Street down to 11th Street is where the expansion is going to take place, correct?
Correct.
So then clarify, Mayor, because that's an offsite. It's offsite from the county jail. Clarify how you tie that into the county. Why you're how you're referring to the county jail with this, because this is an offsite improvement, but yet you were saying that the county jail, we're giving them.
Yeah, under our code of ordinances, if the county wanted to do that improvement there at 24th, our current system would not accommodate the discharge into our pipes. So they would be required to upgrade this section there. And they were aware of that from the beginning. They came to us and asked us for some assistance.
We don't need the upgrade for Wild Horse or any of the apartment communities or the West Side improvements. And then I thought our assistance to affordable housing was to not charge tap fees for the sewer connections. That's what we had when we talked about raising the tap fee for the sewer connection. Our assistance to affordable housing was to not charge them. So we're also saying that we're going to provide infrastructure, wastewater infrastructure within the development, plus not charge tap fees. Can you clarify, please?
Yeah, I think that's what we're talking about. Yes. Doing both, helping them with some of those tap fees and also putting some of that infrastructure in there for them so that they can get that project up and running. That's 600 affordable housing units that this community desperately needs. And as I say, that's going to be guaranteed affordable housing. It's going to be, a lot of that's going to be shared equity housing so that the owners of the houses can never take all the equity out. Part of that equity has to remain there so that it's available for the next person to get that break as well. So that's what we're talking about. Yes. Now we haven't worked out any of those arrangements yet. We're still, and they'll have to be agreed upon, but that's what we're talking about. Yes.
And then so back to the jail then, with all of the development up there, it's not just the jail that's causing us to upgrade this area. It's all of the development, correct? From Wild Horse all down.
Yep, it is.
Great.
And what would have ordinarily happen, the first one would have to upgrade the sewer line, and then they could get some contribution from the other ones that follow. But the burden basically would be on the first developer. Whoever has the deepest pockets is going to be the first developer. They'd do the upgrade and then they'd be able to collect contributions from the other developers if and when they ever came along. So this is a big advantage to the county. It's a big advantage to the other developers in the city for us to do this. This makes it much easier to develop these properties than it otherwise would have been. And that historically it has been. And the only reason we're really able to do it is because we have ARPA funds to do it.
Great. I'm glad we have the ARPA funds.
Right.
That's what we should be using it for.
Exactly.
Is upgrading our infrastructure.
Exactly.
And maintaining our infrastructure. Thank you.
Councilman Atencio.
Yeah, can we get the developers over on, especially on the west side, to show us how much less a house would cost without this help from the city? Because we keep talking about how affordable these houses are going to be because of our contribution, but I would like to see how much less a house is going to cost, as opposed to if they were to put in the sewage lines.
Yeah, I don't know whether we could get them to do that or not. I mean, the one that would really apply to, I think, would be NeighborWorks. And I don't know whether they could do a calculation. Well, I mean, if they have to put in $2 million less in infrastructure than they otherwise would, understand that NeighborWorks is going to build their sort of in phases. Yeah. So it's not going to be all done at once. So I'm not sure that they can do that.
Maybe I have a trust issue in that they're going to get all the infrastructure paid by the city, and then they're still going to charge up the yin yang for as much as they can get per house. Anyway.
Well, I think with a private developer, yeah, you should have that concern. But with NeighborWorks,
which takes me to the 90 lots that are going to be available on the south side. Those are, I assume those are going to be market rate.
Those will be market rate. Yes.
Nice $400,000 or $500,000 homes, but we're going to pay to put in the infrastructure for them. Nice work.
Offsite.
Get it.
Councilor Martinez Ortega.
Yeah, I agree with Councilor Atencio that I don't think we should be subsidizing higher market housing for folks who actually can't afford it. And we're not investing this money in just low income housing and nonprofit developers, but we're actually, if we're not subsidizing low income housing and we're not developing affordable housing, we're not going to meet our goal of 10,000 homes within 10 years. And so if we're subsidizing $500,000 homes with millions of dollars of line that would typically be on them, it just doesn't it doesn't line up with our affordable housing kind of mission and creating as many homes as possible within the 10 years.
We need all kinds of housing. We need market rate housing. We need affordable housing. We need workforce housing. Making these investments will assist us in all that. I think the ones on the south side will be more marketplace housing, more market rate housing. Those are offsite improvements. Again, we're not making any improvements on the site in the subdivision, but and the alternative is how long have those lots been there? And you've got 90 lots there. They cannot afford to put $2 million into that. They just can't afford to do it. That's why the church hasn't built. The church has owned this land for a long time. They cannot build on that property without that sewer system being upgraded, and that's why it doesn't happen. That's why development hasn't happened in a lot of places in Pueblo, because of our requirement that those offsite improvements, not to improve their own sewer system, but to improve our sewer system so that we can actually accommodate those new customers. It's not adequate to do that. So we have a decision to make. We have a once in a lifetime opportunity really with these ARPA funds to use that to facilitate some of that development so that we can get some of those houses built and so that we can get more customers for our water treatment, our sewer treatment plant.
Could we have maybe these two projects under two different ordinances as opposed to the same? Great, thanks.
I think there's two resolutions.
Great, thanks.
Councilor Flores.
I wanted to follow up on Councilman Atencio's wanting clarification on the Pikes Peak deal. I serve on the Pueblo Urban Renewal Authority, and NeighborWorks made exactly the presentation that Mr. Atencio wanted to see. And it is really impressive. They're using a new concept of which they will retain the ownership of the land and not include that in the payment of the house. In many examples, it reduced the price of a house from $2,000 a month to $1,400 a month. It was very, very significant. And if you would like that presentation, I'm sure the NeighborWorks would come in and give us that presentation. But this is a brand new concept, and people will be able to afford a much nicer house and be considered, a low income kind of situation, but really with a nice house. So yeah. I just wanted to say that I live, and you'd be impressed by what they're doing. I live in the area that you're talking about off of Bandera, and there are homes there that are less than 500,000, and especially in the Surfwood area. There's lots of condos and townhouses that I would say more in the 350 to 400. But I want to confirm what the mayor was saying. That church will never be built if they're going to be subject to having to do not only the road, but also the sewer system and the 90 lots that are to the west of east of Bandera will never be developed unless there's some assistance there. And then getting back up to that Jackson Ranch has been on the books for over 40 years. I'm well aware of Bob Jackson, who passed away 20 years ago, was his dream. And that never came to fruition. But without us helping halfway for a sewage line, that'll never be developed. And but I think the need is there for all kinds of housing, and I think this helps.
What are we going to do after ARPA is done? We don't have any one-time money anymore. And these developments want to get developed.
Well, we won't be able to invest this kind of money probably. I mean, we'll have to figure out a different way. We can always go borrow the money if we think the development is that important for the community, but I assume it'll be what it's been in the past, which is that if you want to develop a piece of property, you have to do the offsite sewer improvements to serve that property. And if you don't pay to do that, the development won't take place. That's why the development hasn't taken place. So we're trying to take a new approach. And I think that's one of the reasons why You see the Jackson Ranch, they're in the process of annexing 1,800 acres into the city that will be used for residential development. Because we've suggested to them that we're going to bring this project to the city or to the city council and say, hey, we're going to help to the extent we can, because as Councilor Martinez Ortega indicated, we're going to be 9,500 housing units short in the next 10 years. And we need to start working on that. And this is an opportunity to do that, to make a big difference in our community. And I think that's what we should do with this portion of the ARPA money that we've set aside.
Any other questions?
Can I just,
We'll do
what kind of money are we talking about?
What kind of money are we talking about?
For all these improvements that
we're putting $6 million on the west side, $2 million up north we've already agreed to. The other $4 million.
We're talking about $12 million.
8, I think. 8.
8? Okay.
8 million. Sorry. About 20% of our ARPA money we're putting in the sewer lines to accommodate some of this development.
I'd like to see a work session on the shared equity and how that works, and see how that pays out. Because if they're retaining a portion of the equity of the home, I mean, those infrastructure fees and stuff can be in the portion that they're retaining. I wanted to see how that pays out. And so I'd like to see a work session on that. You know, for the cost of the home, if they're retaining a portion, or we are as government is retaining a portion of the equity, or Neighborhood Works' program is retaining equity, then I don't know why we would have to cut fees. I just would like to see how the program runs. So I'd like particulars on it.
Yeah, well, I think it's still a work in progress for NeighborWorks. This is a new concept. So it's a work in progress that they're working on. And I'm sure they'd be happy to come and talk to you about what that is, but it's a shared equity program where the buyer of the home, when they sell, they don't get all the equity. Part of that equity remains for the next owner so that they don't have to pay as much for the house, if you will. Mm-hmm. So it
stays with the house.
Right. Mm-hmm. I'm sure they can explain that to you.
Yeah, and Ashley put it in a really great way as well with visuals. So we'll talk to Ashley from NeighborWorks to get her on the work session. Just looking at, however, I just want to make sure that I'm understanding the ARPA allocations correctly. Looking at the city council recommendations from the city proposals recommended to city council that was emailed, Ms. Solano, it looks like $2 million is for city wastewater for the Pueblo del Sol and Jackson Ranch. $2 million is for the Pueblo County jail lines, and then $2 million is for the Pikes Peak Park Sun Mountain Boulevard. So that's $6 million. And then another $2 million.
We put the other $2 million in the sewer line up north.
Oh,
the YMCA. That was in last year's ARPA allocation. Yeah. So $8 million total.
Okay. Andra, did you need anything from us? It was just more information, not staff needing anything.
No, this is next Monday. You'll see me again with the resolutions for these projects.
And their resolutions, so
they're actually not on the consent agenda. They're on regular agenda.
Perfect. Great. Seeing no other questions or comments from Andra. Sorry, Andra. We're moving forward. Counselor.
I wanted to make sure the public knew that we keep saying Pueblo County. That jail will be in the city. Those 70 acres will be annexed into the city. So it's really a city. It's going to be a city project. It'll all 70 acres. I think that's already been passed.
I'm sorry, it's been what?
The annexation.
No, it has not.
It
hasn't been annexed yet. No.
Okay, but we're close to it.
We haven't gotten an application yet from the county, as I recall. So it's a work in progress as well.
Okay.
Thanks, Ms. Ahrens. Then our last presentation is a marijuana overview. So can I have Attorney Gloss to the podium, please?
Good evening, Council. Trevor Gloss, Assistant City Attorney, here to give you a rather lengthy presentation on marijuana. So basically everything council was asking about and the areas where there's room to change if council would like to make changes going forward. Daryl, can we have the presentation, please? Thank you. So let's see. So these are the current number and types of licenses. As they stand, we have 28 marijuana licenses in the city, 8 medical licenses, 2 of each type. City has 4 different types of each license, of course, stores, testing, cultivations, and manufactured products. And then for retail, there are actually 20 facilities at the moment, 8 retail stores, which is the maximum allowed by our ordinances, 6 retail cultivations, 4 product manufacturers, and 2 retail testings. We also have 4 additional licenses that are pending final inspections at the moment. So that would bump it up to 32. The roadmap for tonight is marijuana taxes, marijuana fees, social equity licenses, marijuana delivery, walk-ups and drive-ups, and then marijuana hospitality businesses. With regards to marijuana taxes, I did give a presentation on this a couple of weeks back. I have the slides in here in case council would like me to go over it again, but if not, I can skip it and reduce the time a bit.
So you're talking about the excise tax, right? Yes. Excise and sale. Yeah, I think we're good to skip.
Okay. Yes. Okay, so moving on to fees then. So for the city fees, medical is on the cheaper side. Medical stores are $6,500 for an application fee. Product manufacturing, again, $6,500. Cultivations, $6,500 as well. And then testing is only $4,500. For renewals of licenses for all 4 types, it is $4,500 per year. So these are Pueblo medical license fees. For our retail fees are higher. State law generally prohibits municipalities from charging application fees. So what the city does is it charges operating fees to cover the cost of administration, regulation, enforcement, and all of that. Retail cultivations, upon first issuance of the license, are charged $15,000. And then upon renewal, you can see there that it goes down each, depending upon the size of the cultivation. So the least amount is up to 3,600 plants, and they are charged $6,500 for a renewal fee. Whereas with a plant count of over 10,000, they are charged $15,000 for a renewal fee. Retail marijuana products manufacturing is $15,000 as well for the initial application, operating fee, and then $10,000 for each renewal. Retail marijuana testing is $5,000 upon issuance and renewal. And then retail marijuana stores are $15,000 upon issuance and renewal. So $15,000 every year for those ones. Just so you know, our fees are, I believe, the highest in the state. That was done originally because, well, council didn't quite know how much this was all going to cost the city, and it did take a lot of personnel time when things were starting up. Additionally, the city didn't have specific marijuana taxes. It just had its regular sales tax. So the fees were a little bit higher than everywhere else to offset that and to make sure the city could pay for enforcement and administration and all that. Additional fees are cup fees, conditional use permits. These fees are charged by planning and zoning for any issuance of a conditional use permit. So it's not just marijuana, but our code requires that each medical marijuana or retail marijuana license also has a conditional use permit. These permits take a good number of hours from planning and all the various different city departments. And they check on things like landscaping and facades to make sure that all the buffers are met, and just to make sure that these premises are up with the code.
Trevor, we don't charge other businesses $5,000 for that conditional use permit. That's only for marijuana businesses.
Scott, is it? I believe it's for every business, or is it just for marijuana?
Marijuana fees for $5,000.
Okay.
And I think it's important that if you have 4 licenses at one building, that we sometimes require a conditional use permit for each of those licenses, even though it's at the same building. So you're paying $20,000 for conditional use permit instead of $5,000, even though the building, the same building for all the uses.
That's correct. Fees in other jurisdictions. Closest jurisdiction, of course, is Pueblo County. They charge only $5,000 for stores and then $4,000 for cultivations and manufacturing. Testing is only $1,500. And then the county does have transporter licenses, which are something the city doesn't have at the moment, but that's $4,400 every 2 years, so $2,200 a year. The retail stores are $5,000. Cultivations start at $4,000, but they also depend a bit on the plant count. Product manufacturing is $4,000. Testing is $1,500 again, and then transporters are $4,400 every 2 years. Denver actually has relatively minimal fees. Medical marijuana fees add up to about $5,000. Retail marijuana fees also add up to about $5,000, and then delivery $2,500. So they just have a set fee for whether it's retail or medical, doesn't matter the type of license. There are also discounts for social equity licenses, which you can see there, and which I'll go into in a bit more detail. They started accepting hospitality applications in November 2021, and those for those it's $2,000 for a licensing fee. Colorado Springs, they only have medical marijuana licenses. They don't do retail, but for those medical licenses, it's only $2,500. And they have stores, cultivations, manufacturing, and testing. And that's well, and they charge an additional $2,600 for that. So what's that? $5,100 for in total for those licenses. Fort Collins totals about $3,000 for medical licenses, and retail is about $7,500. Medical, Boulder medical totals about $6,600, and retail $7,000. So you can see we're based on those numbers, we're maybe about 4 times higher than those other jurisdictions. Aurora is relatively close to us. They charge $10,000 for all of their retail businesses. And then, but then you go back down to Lakewood, which is just, again, lower. So these are the total fees collected for Pueblo in 2020 and 2021, both for medical and retail. You can see that the license fees for medical are on the lighter side, $35,000 in 2020 and $76,000 in 2021. For retail, that's 2020 was $195,000 and 2021 was $218,000. And then miscellaneous services on both sides are things like when they need to apply for a change in the premises, adding or removing employees, changes to the license that don't cover a variety of different issues. Social equity licenses. So at the state level, there is something called an accelerator license, which is really an apprenticeship program. What they do is a marijuana business gets qualified as an accelerator, and then they can allow new up-and-coming people who want to be licensees to work in their on their premises and under their license as a potential licensee. So they help them. The existing marijuana business helps this new person get started. There are certain requirements for the both the existing licensee and the person that's trying to get started. You can see a little bit more there. At the state level, that's about it when it comes to social equity, helping these folks get started who would normally have a more difficult time. There aren't any discounts or anything like that at the state level. And this is just for retail marijuana businesses. It does not apply to medical marijuana businesses. But when it comes to these accelerator licenses, these are the eligibility criteria for those people who would be the apprentices who would get a leg up. Colorado residents haven't previously owned a marijuana business, and then one of those following. Let's see. So spent 15 years in an opportunity zone or a disproportionate impacted area. The applicant or in close relative to the applicant was disproportionate, well, was negatively affected by marijuana or a marijuana crime. And then the applicant's household income in a year prior to application did not exceed 50% of the state median income as measured by the number of people who reside in the applicant's household. So folks who are generally wouldn't have the money to start a marijuana business. And the social equity licensee then, or the accelerator licensee then has to hold at least 51% ownership in the business. So they own a controlling beneficial ownership. Local jurisdictions. So the local jurisdictions don't really get involved in the accelerator program by itself, but certain jurisdictions do have what amount to social equity discounts. You saw those amounts for Denver earlier, where different licenses were about $3,500 less for most of them. Aurora also has certain discounts, mostly just for retail marijuana deliveries. And both Denver and Aurora use those same eligibility criteria that we saw from the state. I have not seen any other jurisdictions that are using social equity discounts, but there could be some. This is well, these slides are about a month old when I was told to put this together. So moving on to, oh yes, and please stop me if you have any questions, happy to answer them. Moving on to marijuana delivery, walk-ups and drive-ups. Marijuana delivery and walk-ups and drive-ups are actually two separate issues, but we'll go through those. So all three could be allowed as soon as January 2021. Medical delivery was actually allowed starting January 2nd, 2020. But all marijuana delivery, walk-ups, and drive-ups are not permitted in the city of Pueblo unless city council specifically allows them. So we need an ordinance to that effect. Until city council takes action, they are prohibited within the city. If marijuana delivery is approved, state statute also allows us to prohibit deliveries from outside the city. So we could prohibit county deliveries from coming into the city. So delivery permits are available for medical stores, retail stores, and transporter licenses if we had them. The transporter licenses, if we had them, would basically they would contract with a retail store or a medical store and then just deliver on their behalf. But medical or retail stores by themselves can require a special permit for delivery if we allow that, and then they can have their own drivers if they choose to do it that way. If delivery is allowed for medical or retail sales, state law requires a $1 surcharge for every sale, and that surcharge would then be collected for city law enforcement purposes. One of the things that this allows the stores to do is take electronic delivery orders via email or online, which normally they are limited in doing. So these are some of the state requirements for deliveries. The permits issued are valid for 1 year and are renewed annually. Transporters cannot make individual deliveries while also transporting between businesses. So those transporters have to be doing one or the other. They can't have a large load of marijuana they're transporting from Denver to Pueblo and then make a delivery on the side. When delivering to individuals, the individual must be at least 21 years of age, have acceptable ID, and receive the delivery pursuant to any state and local rules. And they're, of course, required to inspect the ID and make sure that the person who is accepting the marijuana is the same person who ordered it. There's also a requirement for a higher degree of training for these persons making the deliveries in accordance with state law. Responsible vendor training, it's called. Deliveries are limited to the daily amounts established by state law. So these are the amounts that you could get if you went to a store and to purchase 2 ounces of medical marijuana or 1 ounce of retail marijuana, or about the equivalent in concentrates and other products. They can only be delivered to a specific individual at a specific address. They can't be accepted by anyone else at that address, or they can't be told to come to a different address while en route. The deliveries can only be made once a day to a person in a specific location. So you can't have multiple deliveries to the same house or the same person. And deliveries can only be made to private residences. You can't have your delivery made while you're at the restaurant or in another public space. There are additional requirements for vehicles as well. So these are additional state regulations on deliveries. So they have, they've definitely covered a lot when it comes to deliveries and how they're to be conducted. Again, you need that responsible vendor certification. All inventory is tracked through the metric system, just like all other sales. There are specific motor vehicle requirements aside from the basic ones of it being registered and insured. A vehicle tracking system that can be used by the business and the MED, but isn't really for tracking marijuana in a route like a Domino's app or something like that. Has to be confidential, so that's more difficult to know where they are and makes it more difficult for them to rob. The vehicle cannot have external markings, so again, makes it more difficult to identify, and it's not advertising for the business. And marijuana must not be visible from outside the vehicle. Additional security requirements as well. And then each vehicle, depending on the type, whether it's enclosed or whether it's open, has a limit on how much marijuana it can hold, which for enclosed vehicles, that's $10,000, which if you say an ounce is about $100, which I'm not actually sure what the current market rate is. That's about 100 ounces worth, which is about so much, I assume. I imagine there's some folks in the crowd who could correct me on that. But they also must receive the order before placing anything in the vehicle. So they can't just, it's not a mobile dispensary. Every time there's an order, they get the marijuana, they put it in the vehicle and they deliver it, and that's it. They don't have it sitting there in the vehicle. So again, someone just can't break into the vehicle and steal the marijuana. Let's see. They cannot complete a delivery, it's returned to the store. They are limited in the hours of delivery from 8 a.m. to midnight. And that's something that the city could limit further if it wanted to do this. And then the state fee is $4,880 initially, and then half that for renewals. So these are some additional things the city could regulate if it so chose. I know that the past city council has gone stricter than state law. It doesn't have to. It just has to meet the state law at a minimum. So it could require additional security personnel, could require electronic ID scanners, further define private residents and where they can make deliveries, maybe even have some buffers on those. Further restrict delivery hours, the types of vehicles used. Deliveries from outside the city limits, you can prohibit those if you so choose. That's kind of a business decision. And well, council has to weigh how that will affect the economics of the situation. And if you want to see fewer deliveries, you could even limit the numbers of vehicles available for each business. So Denver, Boulder, and Superior all allow deliveries. Superior is a little bit of an odd case because they prohibit marijuana within their jurisdiction, but then they allow it to be delivered into the city. And they had to have a specific ordinance to that effect. Let's see. Boulder only allows it for medical marijuana stores, but they don't have a separate fee or anything. It's just considered part of the license. So if you have a medical marijuana store license, you can deliver. And then Denver limits it to transporter licensees. So their regular retail stores and medical stores can't deliver unless they contract with the transporter. And then you see those fees there. And we saw those social equity discounts earlier. Longmont is like Boulder. It's limited to medical marijuana stores, and it's just part of the license. Aurora, deliveries are allowed for retail marijuana stores and transporters, not medical. Actually, I think they only have retail. instead of medical. But they have more stricter requirements than what the state would allow, such as the less hours for delivery. They stop at 10 p.m. and they have additional motor vehicle requirements and have that permitting fee there. Walk up and drive up windows. It used to be that everything had to happen within the store itself. COVID though kind of changed things. As of walk-ups and drive-ups became legal as of January 2021. They were allowed temporarily in 2020 just because of COVID and people had, well, there were some orders from the governor that allowed folks to line up on the curb and for the marijuana to be delivered to them outside and things like that. So this is basically in response to the pandemic. The licensees would have to get approval from the city prior to modifying their premises and allowing either the walk-ups or drive-ups. Basically, all of our marijuana licenses are enclosed buildings, solid walls. They don't have anything that would allow this at the moment, so they'd all have to make structural changes, which would require approval from planning and zoning, from regional building, et cetera. And these are currently prohibited by ordinance, so we would have to change that if City Council wanted to allow it. These are the general requirements for drive-up and drive-through windows. The window must be under the licensee's control and cannot be public property. So it cannot say abut a public sidewalk. That would be prohibited. It has to be their lot, land owned by them. Otherwise, you have the same requirements with regards to viewing IDs and other sales requirements. There's a special requirement that orders at the window have to be made through a menu, and you can't have a display of marijuana at the window. Additional video surveillance is required. And then there's a requirement that vehicles cannot enter the licensed premises, which I take to mean that they can't, say, convert a garage to open and allow them to drive in or drive through for their marijuana. So again, if the city wanted to go stricter, it could limit the hours of use or impose additional security. And approval would be needed from various city departments prior to any of these changes being made. So it seems like most jurisdictions still haven't caught up on this one either, or haven't taken action. Denver and Dillon and Parachutes are the only ones that have really allowed walk-ups and drive-throughs. And moving on to marijuana hospitality businesses, which I know council and everyone is very interested in. Thanks. Okay. So there are two types of marijuana hospitality businesses. So marijuana hospitality businesses and then retail marijuana hospitality and sales businesses. The way you can think about these is the first one is basically bring your own. It's like a lounge where you bring your own marijuana to consume around other people. And then the second is basically a bar for marijuana. You go there, you purchase it there, and you consume it there. So these are the basic rules for both types of businesses. They have a lot in common. No one under 21 can enter. On-duty employees cannot consume. Liquor and tobacco are not allowed on the premises, or at least not allowed to be consumed on the premises. You cannot enter or consume if otherwise intoxicated. Disorderly conduct and rowdiness is prohibited, but of course that's prohibited everywhere. They cannot give away marijuana or marijuana products, so they have to, well, the first isn't allowed to sell or give away, and then the second has to be selling. They can't be giving it away. They must have a minimum amount of food on the premises to, well, the logic there is likely the same as it is for liquor licenses. It helps people to sober up or stay sober. Marijuana must not be observable from outside the licensed premises. Consumption must cease if law enforcement enters. They all have to go through responsible vendor training, which is again that higher standard imposed by the state. Each employee has to be licensed by the state and undergo a background check, but all marijuana employees have to do that as well. They can be operated in an isolated portion of retail business. So say you have a restaurant that does not serve liquor, you could theoretically have a marijuana hospitality establishment in the back if the city decided to allow that. And then they cannot be co-located with any other type of marijuana business. So say, for example, you already own a cultivation or store, you cannot then go and ask for a marijuana hospitality business or a retail marijuana hospitality and sales business in that same location. It will have to be a separate licensed location. So here's some more details on each type of license. For the marijuana hospitality license, again, this is the bring your own marijuana. You cannot sell or transfer marijuana or marijuana products on site. There's also the option for a mobile marijuana hospitality business. So for example, if a limo wanted to allow people to consume in the back, they could get a mobile establishment license. It's mostly the same requirements as a regular hospitality business, but there are a few additional requirements. For a retail marijuana hospitality and sales business license, they can sell marijuana and marijuana products for on-premise consumption. They cannot sell more than 2 grams of flower or 1/2 gram concentrate to a customer per day. So that's quite a bit less than the state 1 ounce. I did a little bit of research, and apparently that's equal to 1 large joint or 2 smaller joints, depending on how much they use. So they must consume on premises, but they can take extra home, extra unused product. Again, they cannot make multiple sales to the same person that exceed that 2 gram limit, and it's all tracked through the metric system, the state system. And then they cannot allow the consumption of outside products. So someone cannot bring their own product to consume on the premises. Must the city allow them? No. Again, this is something the city council has to take action on to allow within the city. It's an opt-in provision. Without council doing that, and in general, it's still illegal to publicly consume marijuana in the state of Colorado. You have to be in a private residence for the most part. This is hospitality establishments would be one of the few places where you could consume outside of your own establishment around other people. Smoking on premises, will smoking be allowed? This is something the city can allow or disallow as it so chooses. If smoking is not expressly permitted, per state statute, if we don't expressly allow it, then it will be prohibited. So council likely knows about the Colorado Clean Indoor Air Act and Pueblo's Smoke-Free Air Act. The Colorado Clean Indoor Air Act, after hospitality businesses were approved at state law, they actually changed the act to create an exception for marijuana hospitality businesses. So if a local jurisdiction allows a marijuana hospitality business and allows smoking in it, then the Colorado Clean Indoor Air Act does not have an issue with it. The Pueblo Smoke-Free Air Act would also normally apply. However, its language there is really only applicable to tobacco. So marijuana is beyond the scope of the Clean Indoor Air Act. But if necessary, we could add some language to our hospitality licensing provisions or the like, saying that the Smoke-Free Air Act would not apply to hospitality licensed businesses. So considerations for council, that you can allow one or both mobile hospitality businesses and retail sales hospitality. You could allow mobile premises for the hospitality businesses if you wanted to. You could allow or disallow smoking on those premises. zoning, kind of like where they're going to be in the city. Same locations for bars and other liquor licensed premises, our same buffers that we currently have. And whether to allow mobile establishments, and then if so, where would they be allowed in the city? What types of routes could they drive? And then we don't normally require surveys of the neighborhoods for marijuana businesses, just because they are such a divisive subject that, well, and state law doesn't require us to do surveys, which makes it easier for marijuana businesses to get started. So proposed fees for the marijuana hospitality business, which is bring your own, would be $5,000. Then a retail marijuana hospitality and sales business, would be $15,000, as it's similar to a store in principle. Although if City Council is, of course, considering lowering other fees, then these fees would be lowered as well. Potential areas. The areas where these would be allowed in the city, assuming we use our current buffers for stores, which are 1,000 feet from operational schools, 500 feet from hospitals and substance abuse treatment centers, and then 300 feet from residential districts. Between the buffers and the zones where these allowed, there are actually relatively few locations within the city where marijuana businesses can operate. Marijuana hospitality businesses included if we use the same buffers. So this map is a little old, it's from 2017, but because the buffers are changing all the time, because there are new schools and goal academies and different businesses opening up all the time, the buffers are constantly changing. But this gives you a general idea of where marijuana businesses can operate within the city. And in general, the hospitality would probably be along the same lines. So hospitality, Adams County has 5 marijuana hospitality licenses as of 2020. They are going through a lottery process there. However, the first one wasn't licensed until February 16, 2020. So it took 2 years for that first license to get issued about. Denver is also in the process of a couple. They have 1 licensed business currently. They started allowing them as of July 1st, 2021. And then I did not see any other jurisdictions that are currently allowing hospitality businesses. And I probably went through that a little bit quicker than I should have, but please let me know any questions council has. I'm happy to answer them as best as I can.
Thanks, Attorney Glass. What questions are there from council? So that was a lot of information. So take a sip of water. Now, for my street.
So Dr. Hassan is doing his own gathering of signatures, and he's going to put his own ballot initiative forward, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the excise tax right now is 8%.
Correct.
And we have the ability to go up to 15%, correct?
Correct.
Are we losing money lately because sales are down?
I do not have, well, let's see. I have the 2020 and 2021 numbers from the slides I previously showed council. I don't have the current year's numbers. I'm not sure if those have been collected yet.
Were we down in 2021?
I believe. No, I don't think so. Let me double check for you.
Marissa, do you want to chime in?
So excise tax.
I'll let Trevor get his number.
It was up. The city, it went up a little over $200,000.
Yeah.
Went from 562,000 to 797,000.
Mm-hmm. And so what you're asking us to consider changing fees, the licensing fees, is that what you're asking here?
In part, I know there has been community interest from licensees in particular in reducing the fees. I'm not advocating for one portion or the other, but that's, I
The
believe that's been.
consideration, as you're just saying, it's a consideration.
Yes. So whether council wants to adopt any of those new types of licenses, whether council wants to reduce fees, or whether based on anything I presented tonight, council would like to see changes to the marijuana code.
Yeah.
Councilor Flores.
Clarify the Pueblo Smoke Free Act here that you indicated it only included tobacco. And as I read bullet point 3, it does use the terminology weed, plant, or other combustible substances. Wouldn't that cover marijuana the way that's described?
It could normally, however, the way it is used in, so that definition, when it's being prohibited, that definition is not actually used. So the way it's construed when you're applying the definitions that are used, it's just applying to tobacco. So although if that one was being used, it could, but just due to the language and how it was drafted, it ends up only applying to tobacco.
And if we were to change that to include marijuana in there, but say we didn't do anything, are we governed by the state the state statute, which indicates the word marijuana?
So yeah, so with the state statute, as long as the city specifically allows smoking in these hospitality establishments, that's good enough for the state statutes. It will be allowed.
So we wouldn't have to do anything?
No.
Okay. Why do you think the licensing of hospitality businesses, it doesn't seem like there's much activity at all on that? It doesn't appear that there's even, there might be, I'm trying to find that page here where you had Denver and you had.
Yeah, I believe there's
Aurora. 3
or 4 in Denver and then 5 in Adams County. And the first one in Adams County was just approved in this, took about 2 years. I think there's a couple different factors. I mean, these were first approved at the state level right before the pandemic, and then COVID hit. So of course you can't have public gatherings, and marijuana hospitality businesses are all about the public aspect. So that definitely put, slowed down everything. And I imagine folks didn't really want to start a business if it was going to go under immediately. Local jurisdictions are definitely hesitant. I mean, this is something completely new. Marijuana public consumption is, again, generally prohibited, aside from this very limited exception. And they kind of want to see how everyone else is going to do it first, how it's going to be implemented, any issues. And I don't think it can be compared quite like a bar. I mean, bars, and everyone knows the effects of alcohol and how, I mean, we see complaints for fights and all kinds of things going on. That's less likely with a marijuana establishment, or so I'm told, but it would be a lot easier to lose a marijuana hospitality license for a violation than it would some of the other types of marijuana licenses.
As of today, there's only 1 in Adams County and 1 in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
So there's only 2 active hospitality establishments as we speak right now.
Yes, there may be one in Colorado Springs, but that kind of got in on a gray area before hospitality was allowed. But those are the only 2 that I currently know about.
Would it be your opinion, because you did indicate that when this was put together years ago, nobody knew where we were headed. So our fees were established at that point, but it does appear that we're pretty high in comparison to almost any other city in Colorado. Would it be your opinion that we should maybe revisit that and look at all of those fees to at least be equitable to what other communities are doing? Or
it would, I think it would be beneficial to look at those, just because we are likely the highest in the state. Whether I don't know if we want to go down all the way to Denver's levels or the like, just because we do still have quite a few costs. And I mean, if Dr. Hassan's initiatives pass and the city is no longer collecting any marijuana tax, then fees will be our sole source of counteracting those regular costs for the marijuana licensing process. And I mean, we've had to hire additional personnel. It's taken takes a lot of man hours for each license application that goes on. So fees, I definitely think can be revisited and lowered. But there are some considerations to balance.
Thank you.
Can I just add to what Trevor said with respect to these hospitality suites? In 2020, we first had a conversation, I think, with City Council right before the pandemic. And at that time, the largest retail marijuana store in Pueblo, 50% of their customers were not from Pueblo. They were from out of town. So the impetus for having that discussion was, as Trevor indicated, it's illegal to consume marijuana publicly. But those people that are stopping from out of town, do you think they're waiting until they get home to use the marijuana? Or should we give them a place where they can use it in a regulated environment rather than having them smoking it while they're walking down the street or smoking it while they're in their car? I think that was the impetus for the discussion. But I think we're deluding ourselves if we think that people are not consuming it publicly or they're not going to consume it in their cars when they buy it in Pueblo. And so these hospitality suites were an alternative to that public consumption or the consuming in the cars. Now, whether maybe you think they're not using it when after they buy it until they get home, but I don't think that's the case.
There's also arguments that it's good for tourism as well. I mean, Vegas has at least one. I think they have multiple now, hospitality establishments, and that's kind of part of that's a new draw for the city. So it could be something that brings more folks to Pueblo.
Councilor Martinez Ortega, then Councilor Graham, then Councilor Mike.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I was going to ask the same question about cutting the fees, if we think that might be a good idea to make it comparable to other cities and communities here in Colorado, to keep up with the times a little bit more, but also to the mayor's point, it probably is worth looking into to add some more of these licensing of hospitality suites, just, and this is my opinion, to allow some folks, like the mayor saying, a place for this consumption. So it's not in parking lots or what have you. So that's it.
My position is I don't think Pueblo's ready for hospitality rooms, quite frankly. And as far as the excise tax goes, my position is also that I don't think it should be dropped, but I think it's our due diligence to at least look at what the fees are, since, you know, they are so outrageous. And if we are trying to help the marijuana business and the growers and the retail, that's something that we can do without losing the excise tax and without, you know, promoting the use of marijuana by having hospitality rooms.
Just clarify, hospitality lounge does not have the same regulation as a bar, a liquor establishment, correct? Like anyone can leave. The owner to the hospitality lounge is not responsible or liable like a bar owner, correct? No, I mean, well, wait a second, because that was not what was put forth in the last presentation. I asked the question and it was clarified, and I just want to re-clarify that question.
I guess, could you?
So what I'm saying is, if someone leaves and they're still under the influence, the establishment is not liable like as in a liquor establishment.
So, I mean, that's a good question. And the answer is that it hasn't been decided yet, because there are only 2 functional marijuana hospitality establishments. There hasn't really been any case law on that. And I don't know of any statute that would necessarily limit the hospitality business's liability. So until there's a court case saying whether or not they're liable for allowing people to leave intoxicated.
When you write the statute, wouldn't we write the regulation? If we were to implement these, we would write the law to support it, correct? I mean, we wouldn't wait for an incident to happen to create law, would we?
Well, that's difficult because we're talking about third-party liability, and it legally gets a little messy because you have someone doing something they shouldn't have been doing in the first place. When you have an intoxicated driver, that's a crime, and or an intentional tort. Well, no, sorry, a criminal. Being the term right now, but generally that criminal action cuts off liability of another person. But again, there are different theories of criminal liability, and in certain cases, a bar or a marijuana hospitality establishment could still be found liable. And the city and states, I don't know of anyone that's actually limited that liability. By statute, I think they have generally left it to case law and treated it on a situation by situation basis, just because it's always a little bit different.
So when we'll get forwarded a lot of the updates on the smoking consumption lounges. We get these articles that are sent to our email from, I don't know if it's local business owners or what. I go through further because it's usually a publication of some sort, and I start to read the other stories. And the other stories are saying that they're limited in the social lounges in Denver and Adams County because they're testing it. Is that
their liability for getting sued?
No, they're testing the consumption lounge and what it's doing for their community. They're like They're piloted lounges to make sure that this is going to work for their community because they haven't had, it's all new to them. Did you?
In Denver?
Adams County is limited to 5, so I could see that being a.
But they're capped. But are they?
They're capped at 5, so I can see that being a test, kind of like we did with our 8 retail stores. But I haven't heard about. I mean, I imagine that's probably why they're moving slower as well to kind of see how it works out. But I haven't heard anything about it being a test program.
I know that our clerk, Marissa Stoller, is online. So Marissa, do you want to chime in on this?
Yes, thank you, Councilor Martinez, work session chair. One of the other parts of the Denver is that they're only allowing social equity licenses currently to take on the consumption lounges. And that is meant to be a step up for those types of licenses to help them get established before allowing more mainstream opportunities for others in Denver. So that may be part of the reason why there's limited resources dedicated to the Denver ones and why there might not be as many set up in Denver.
Okay. And then also, our state, the citizens of our state already ask, where does the marijuana money go? They don't see it benefiting the community. So I think it's really something that we have to consider as council members when it comes to reducing the fees, because right now the citizens of the city, a majority of them don't see a benefit of the marijuana money. I'd like to have, before we even make any a further case, I would like to see, even from our police department, what the effects of marijuana how it has affected our community, because they see it in the day-to-day. I'd like to see something from maybe the, do they have a drug department in the public health department where they do all of their,
narcotics
research, narcotics and so forth, and how it's affecting our community. We have some experts in this community that and resources in this community, and I think they should have a voice because they see it on a day-to-day basis. To come here and say that, we should reduce fees when we sold this was sold to the people, the legalization was sold to the people that we are going to be benefiting from it. And we have a really high population out there. In fact, there was a survey done in 2016 and already 62% of this Colorado, state of Colorado citizens were regretting the legalization of marijuana. So I think rather than just to sit it here in front of the council and put this in front of council, we should really actually also see the ill effects of what it has brought to our community before we start reducing fees and making it better for the marijuana industry. We cannot really overturn the legalization of marijuana, but I don't know that we need to further the agenda. And so I would like to see a counter of what you're saying here. And
I'm just presenting options. I'm not.
I realize that. Okay. I realize that, but we really need to start looking at how it has really affected our community before we start reducing the fees and so forth.
Councilor Flores.
I wanted to clarify the difference between liquor law liability, which would make a bar owner responsible if they knowingly and negligently allowed someone to drink to the point that they went out and killed somebody out on a freeway. It took years. They used to call those dram shop laws, and it took years before that kind of I mean, we've been, drinking liquor for hundreds of years, but it took quite a while for that to generate that kind of law. And I think it's probably the same with marijuana. It's going to take some time before there's some sort of marijuana legal liability statute.
I'm sure they'll get their insurance companies, Jeff.
Right.
Councilor,
I don't think that would prevent somebody from.
I think you hit the nail on the head. As one who did civil litigation before I became the mayor, liquor establishments are basically immune from liability for any damage caused by their customers, unless somebody can prove that they knowingly and intentionally served alcohol to a minor or to somebody who was visibly intoxicated. That's the only time they're liable. So it's not like this would be anything different.
There is some liability when you're serving. Right now, we're #1 in the state for impaired fatality accidents. And so, I mean, we've got to well, that's what I read. Yeah. I don't understand why we would dismiss
I'd like to answer one of the things that's
should.
happened. One of the things that's happened because of marijuana in the city is hundreds of young Latino men are not in jail today, charged with possession. That's one of the things that's happened. Otherwise, my prejudice is against liquor far more than it is against marijuana, but I'm not really in favor of any consumption lounges or anything like that. So I would leave it alone. I think we're in the infancy in terms of the marijuana industry and business. Give it another 10 years and it might evolve into something else. But today, I say leave it like it is. And like I said, there's hundreds of young Latino men that are not in prison and in jail because of possession due to marijuana legalization.
I echo Councilor Atencio. I would, however, be in favor of looking at the fees. I think that they are 4 times as high as the other counties. So just to be comparable and equitable, I would be amenable to addressing the fees, but that's the extent of my action at this time. Attorney Gloss, it sounds like or Chief Miller, if you could provide us, council members, with statistics or data that you have found regarding DUI rates in communities that have passed these policies, I think that would be helpful, particularly over time since marijuana has been passed, would be the data I think Councilor Maestri is wanting.
All crime involving by state law, but doesn't mean we haven't suffered ill effects. I don't know that our community really wants to be known for drugs and liquor. establishments here. I mean, to have even the walk-up facilities. I just drove by the methadone clinic the other day, and that's everybody talks about that. You know, it's not a site, it's unsightly to be driving by and watch people, you know, receiving their drugs.
The other thing Trevor talked about was delivery. Is there any interest in exploring delivery? Nobody has an interest in doing that, so that people that are disabled or something, they just have to figure out a way to get it.
We've been getting it so far.
Well, sure, we get a fee for $1 for every delivery.
Yeah, there's a $1 surcharge on each delivery. I mean, you still have your sales tax on every sale. So,
and I think when we're talking about DUIs, it almost makes, and I don't have the data, but I feel like having delivery would have lower rates of
Mm-hmm.
DUIs compared to marijuana hospitality lounges, because then you have at least people staying there at their home. So again, that's why I want to see the DUI data to see how, if that is substantiated by numbers, because at least they're staying home if they're partaking and utilizing marijuana and not traveling out and about. Councilor Atencio.
You know how many drunks walk out of bars in this town every single happy hour? Goodness gracious. And it depends on, sorry, Chief, but it depends on the neighborhood that the bar is in. If you're in a low-income neighborhood, you get DUIs. If you're in a high-income neighborhood, there ain't no way in hell somebody's going to get caught for DUIs. You know how many drunks come out of the country club every night?
I don't think intoxication of any form is better than the other. Intoxication is intoxication. When people go out, I think people are going to go out.
Okay.
Drink too.
Does that conclude the meeting?
Yeah, we'll try to see if there's some numbers out there in terms of the number of people who are convicted of driving offenses related exclusively to marijuana, and compare those to alcohol, if that's what you're looking for, and see what that looks like. I'm not sure that those numbers are there. Fortunately, we don't have a real good way of knowing when you're under the influence of marijuana by tests. You know, we know that you've used it in the last 30 days, but we don't know whether you used it and it's impaired your driving. So we'll see if the chief can find some information out about that.
Well, we are going to revisit the fees.
Yeah,
We'll bring something back
I
for
think
the fees.
right now I only feel comfortable revisiting the fees, if I'm being honest. And Councilman Flores, yes.
Okay.
Councilor, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, just revisiting the fees right now. Okay. With that, that's 7:54, and I conclude this work session.